So far you've learned how to clean up your diet. You've learned how to clean out your body by detoxing. You've learned how to use essential oils to help facilitate all of that. And now we're going to talk about how to clean up your environment. Because once you've done all of that hard work of changing your diet and detoxing your body, you want to make sure that you're actually reducing the exposure that you have to different toxins. So today I'm going to walk you through different things that you can do just even in your own home to help eliminate the toxins that you are exposed to on a daily basis. So we're going to get started here. Let's see. All right. Now, first, I want to just make sure that you have an understanding of where the toxins are. Where are we finding these? Now, we know that just pollution in general, right? That's a toxin. But there's actually toxins that are inside of your home and in your living environment. And a lot of people aren't aware of that. And here's the thing, you guys, we're not going to live in a bubble, right? There's some things that we cannot control. So our approach to this is let's help eliminate the toxins and some of the things that we are exposed to that we can control. One of the first things that I always like to point out is under your kitchen cabinet. This is where a lot of toxins are held for cleaning. And guess what? We have to eliminate these toxic products that we use to clean our house. Because we know now we have essential oils and we have non-toxic products that can clean our house and not cause damage to our liver and to our kidneys. If you look at a bottle of bleach, for example, it'll say, do not let come in contact with skin. If you look at a bottle of, these other cleaning agents that you have under your sink, most likely inside of them, they have pesticides and other really dangerous contaminants. So underneath your sink, it's a big place to start. Now, obviously, we know what we ingest, and we talked about diet already, and so we're not going to dig into this too deep, but I just want to remind you that what we're eating, if it is laden with chemicals, is going to contribute to that toxic environment in our body. So the foods you have a good idea about, but let's talk about what we use to cook with. So a lot of you are familiar, and actually we've had quite a few questions come in that you've told us that you've cleaned out your cabinets, you cleaned out your refrigerator, but you have heard about these really toxic pots and pans, and really coming from nonstick cookware. So we've gotten a lot of questions about that. And so I want to make sure we point out that nonstick cookware is really, really toxic. And this picture on the right shows you that if your pot is scraping up and you're starting to see that black stuff come off, that's going into your food and you're ingesting it. So they've actually linked cancer to the toxic chemical PFOA, which is what is found in nonstick cookware, okay? So what we're going to replace it with is we're going to replace it with pure stainless steel or ceramic or glass. Now, a few of our favorite brands, there's a brand called All-Clad that has good stainless steel cookware. There is a brand called Le Creuset that has ceramic cookware. And then Pyrex actually has some great glass cookware. Now, what we've done, because again, of course, these are going to be a bit more expensive than maybe the nonstick, the cheaper cookware that's laden with aluminum and toxic chemicals. So the way that our family did it is we started with a pot a year. And that sounds so ridiculous, I know. But if you're on a budget, it's a really practical way to do that. So maybe start with the pan that you use the most. For us, that was our egg pan because we cook eggs every morning. And so that's where we started, and we purchased an egg pan first. And then about 6 months later, we bought a soup pan. So start small and just begin replacing the pans that you use the most. Now, what about what we store our food in? I know that this is really convenient, especially for those of you, you're doing such a good job already of cleaning up your cooking. And you're making meals, you're spending more time in the kitchen preparing meals. But here's the deal. Leftovers are one of the best parts about being prepared, right? The best parts about actually making food, because then you don't have to sit down and prepare a big lunch. You can have leftovers from dinner the night before. But where you're storing those leftovers is really important. We do not want to store our food or eat our food or drink our food out of plastic. Plastic releases hormones, toxic synthetic hormones, and is not really helpful to our body. So instead, replace it with glass. Costco or Sam's Club carries a really great line of Tupperware that is glass. It has plastic lids, but where you put the food is all glass. I love these Life Factory water bottles up on top because they have that silicone protection layer. So if you drop it, it's not going to break. We also love Swell bottles. Those are stainless steel. So glass or stainless steel is best for drinking out of and for storing your food in. So let's talk about water. That's another thing that we do ingest. Now, it's really important, and you've heard us mention this if you follow us on Facebook and if you've ever participated in any of our other programs, you've heard us talk about how a water filter is really, really important. There's a lot of toxic chemicals that are in water, and especially if you live in the city. So I want to share with you just some of the toxic chemicals that are added to water. Chlorine, fluoride, and then from pollution, you have heavy metals, chromium-6, which is a really toxic heavy metal, radioactive particles, benzene that comes from oil, pesticides, pharmaceutical drugs. All of these are found in water, you guys, drinking water. Now there's beneficial minerals in water, calcium carbonate, magnesium carbonate, trace minerals. So the minerals in drinking water are really, really helpful. And so that's why we don't want to always drink water that is, oh my gosh, I'm losing the term, but the water that you've removed everything out of. So we want to make sure that we're still drinking good filtered water. Okay. Now, when we're talking about filters, there's a few different out there. And one of them is called the Berkey water filter. That's actually what I prefer. So I'll go back there really quickly. So the Berkey water filter is, you can buy it on Amazon. It's a countertop water filter that you can purchase. And it runs between $200 and $350. And does it take every toxin out? No, it doesn't. But it does a really good job. Oh, and alkaline water is what I was mentioning before. I apologize. So alkaline water can be helpful, but a lot of times when you do that, you remove some of those beneficial minerals. So it's okay to drink regular water just as long as it's filtered. And again, we recommend the Berkey. So let's talk about some of the toxins that we inhale on a regular basis. So carpet and flooring, the glues that help with putting carpet in and hardwood floor, you guys, can be really, really toxic, and it off gases. So here's the deal. You're not going to just go in and replace all of your flooring. I think your spouse might have a heart attack if you tell them that you need to. But let's just look at the example. If you were remodeling your house, or you're buying a new house, or building a new house, you want to open all the doors and windows for at least a week to 2 weeks to let all of that off-gassing chemicals get out of the house. We also recommend diffusing essential oils like Purify, lemongrass, On Guard. Those are all really great essential oils to diffuse to clear up the pollutants that are off-gassing in the air in your home from different things like new carpet, even new furniture, new leather furniture, new different fabrics of furniture will also off-gas and can be toxic. So again, this is where I want you to not get overwhelmed, but I want you to just go, okay, so we have to have furniture. And not all of us can afford to buy only organic furniture, right? That's not a reality for most people. So then let's just use the essential oils, like I mentioned, lemongrass, Purify, On Guard, diffuse those in our home. And when our furniture is new, let's maybe let it sit in the garage for a week and let it off gas in the garage before we bring it in our house. So here's just some of the pollutants that we find that we inhale. And you'll see that a lot of these are actually from inside our house. So benzene is in paint, new carpets, new drapes, upholstery. And then you can see some of the symptoms on the right: headaches, eye and skin irritations, fatigue, even cancer. Ammonia, that's in cleaning supplies, and of course tobacco smoke. Chloroform, that's actually in new paint, new drapes, upholstery, new carpeting. So again, I just want you to get somewhat familiar with just the amount of toxins that can be in your home, especially if you're remodeling or it's all, new paint, new flooring, whatever that looks like. And remember, what are you going to do? You're going to use your essential oils to diffuse in your house to clean out the air. And you're going to also open the windows when you have all of these new paint or new carpet and all of that to help air out the house. So some solutions, we are already talked about essential oils, but some other solutions that are really helpful are air purifiers. We purchased one called Austin as soon as Kicker was diagnosed. Actually, that was given to us. We had a dear friend who gave us an Austin air filter, and then we ended up purchasing another one because we wanted one in their bedroom and we wanted one in the main living area. So the Austin air filter is really great. You can look that up online and order it online. Ozonated oil is a really great thing, and you can get that from typically most naturopaths. Onions, crazy enough, if you cut an onion in half and you put it in a room, especially a room that maybe just got new carpet, a room that you just painted in, it'll help soak up the toxins. Plants. This is one of my favorites because a lot of us love the look of plants in our home. I know for me, I love new fresh flowers in my home every week, but plants are actually really beneficial. So let's talk about a few. Aloe vera. Aloe vera is known to actually absorb and eat up formaldehyde and benzene. Those are two of the chemicals that are found in most furniture, flooring, and paint. Awesome, right? So if you have an aloe vera plant, they're very attractive. Put it in your main living area where maybe that work has just been recently done. A spider plant. This is really great for absorbing I can't say this very well, but chlorophytum comosum, benzene, formaldehyde, carbon monoxide, and xylene, I think is how you say it. So that plant, the spider plant, or as I mentioned, the other name for it is chlorophytum comosum, that will help absorb benzene, formaldehyde, carbon monoxide, and xylene. So these are really toxic chemicals, again, found in our homes and some of the things in our homes. A Gerber daisy, I love this because these are actually one of my favorite flowers. They were Josh and I's wedding flower, but it's really great at eating up more chemicals that are actually found in flooring and paint. Notice I didn't even try to say that word because that's a big one. And the snake plant, it's also known as the mother-in-law's tongue, which is funny. It's actually very long, pretty, long leaves, pointy tips, and that's really helpful at formaldehyde. So what we have in our home is we actually always have a snake plant, and we always have Gerber daisies. And I actually had an aloe vera plant, and I need to get another one. The last time we moved, I got rid of it because it was dying. So I would encourage you to start with those. Those are really, really great plants, and they're attractive as well. So let's talk about what we put on our bodies. I love this picture. It reminds me of my little girl when she would get into my makeup. So what we put on our bodies doesn't just include makeup, you guys. It actually includes stuff that we're cleaning with because we're touching it. It's going on our skin. Even dish soap. Think about that. When you're washing your dishes, that dish soap is getting into your skin. And dish soap can be really toxic. So even the clothes that we're wearing, you guys, the clothes that we put on our body, especially our kids, can be toxic. So let's talk about flame-resistant clothes. Most pajamas that you can get from Carter's, actually Walmart, some of the more popular places to buy kids' pajamas are flame-resistant, which I understand maybe the idea, but it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And also, to make it flame-resistant, it has PBDEs, it has dioxin and DDT. Those are all known carcinogens. And yet we're letting our kids at night sleep in them. They're getting absorbed right into their bloodstream. So instead, we love 100% cotton pajamas. And some of my favorite places to get those are Old Navy, Gap Kids. And Gap Kids and Old Navy, you guys have sales all the time. You can go online and they have some really cute pajamas that are 100% cotton. Ideally, you want to also avoid polyester. I'll pop back just a second. Polyester is a plastic. So it's been so processed. And unfortunately, a lot of those really fuzzy pajamas and fuzzy blankets that kids like are typically polyester. And so we've been really intentional about eliminating polyester for the most part out of our house. Now for me and Josh, of course, I really enjoy shopping and I'm really into fashion. And so there are certainly some tops and things that I have that do have polyester in them. But especially for my kids, they don't care as much, right? They're at that age where we can pick out their clothes and they'll wear them. And so I just make sure that we don't purchase things that are majority polyester for them. So let's talk about what makes life convenient. Now, what makes life convenient? We have things like Wi-Fi, right? We have cell phones. We have all of these different things that are radiating constantly. And this is kind of a new world problem. This isn't something that even some of us dealt with as little kids. We didn't have the constant exposure to EMFs and to different just frequencies that are passing through because of cell phones and internet and all of that. So I want to explain, even in your home, these are things that you don't really think of emitting electromagnetic frequencies, but they do. So blenders, clothes washers, coffee makers, computers, obviously, that's more of an obvious one. Hair dryers, these are all things that are actually emitting EMFs. So EMFs are electromagnetic fields or frequencies, and they cause damage in our body. In fact, they've even linked leukemia to overexposure of radiation and or EMFs. So when you're aware of a blender and a clothes washer emitting quite a bit of EMFs, what can you do? You're going to still use it. I'm not going to hand wash my clothes, I promise you that. I'm definitely not getting rid of my coffee maker. So what am I going to do? When I'm not using it, I'm just going to unplug it. It's really simple, you guys. So I know you're starting to go, wow, this is so much stuff. How am I going to ever get rid of these things? You don't need to get rid of them. Just unplug them. Now, I would say get rid of a microwave oven. That is so terrible. It destroys your food. Not only does it destroy any of the nutrients in your food, but it also adds radiation. And so just super toxic. I love to joke about the idea of the vacuum cleaner. I always say, well, I need to hire a house cleaner to vacuum since I'm not supposed to use it. That's just my little joke. But, just being aware of some of these things. Don't keep them plugged in when you're not using them. Now, for an airplane. So an airplane, you do have to obviously there's places we have to fly to, right? Some of those things you can't avoid. So my favorite thing to do to help eliminate radiation exposure and EMFs is detox baths, which you learned about in the detox section. So when you go on a flight, put your kids and yourself, draw a bath with baking soda, Epsom salt, and soak in it for 30 minutes. And that'll help eliminate some of that exposure when you're on your flight. So this is important to see. And the reason I included this is because I want you to understand the significance of kids that are being exposed to cell phone use and radiation. So kids are much more susceptible to electromagnetic radiation, specifically from a cell phone or a computer, iPad. So if you look at this, it says, this is from the work of Dr. Om Gandhi, a computer image comparison of the heads of adults and children, all adjusted to the same scale, showing that radiation penetrates younger skulls far more deeply than those of adults. So if you see the first one, that's a radiation penetration in the head of an adult. So it's probably, I would say, a cell phone conversation, holding a phone up to the head or holding the phone in front of you, maybe playing games on the phone or the iPad. Then you see the radiation penetration in the head of a 10-year-old, far greater. And then in the head of a 5-year-old, almost takes up the whole compass of the brain. So again, just let's be aware. Now, do we let our kids play with iPads? We do. We limit it. We're pretty strict about just technology exposure for our kids. They're 6 and 8, so we're able to still, of course, they're not going to get a cell phone for quite a while. They're only allowed to play their iPads when we're in doctor's visits or a really long car ride. And when we're in the car, of course, we make sure when they're using it that it's on airplane mode, which requires you to download games so that they don't have to connect to the internet to use it. So when our kids are using their iPads, they are always on airplane mode and they're limited. Their exposure is limited. And, of course, they FaceTime with their aunties and their Nana and Papas and their Gammy and Gampies. So that's, of course, limited as well. We don't let them just hang out on the phone and play with our phones unless they're on airplane mode. So a really simple solution is to let your kids play, but turn it on airplane mode, and then it's not sending and receiving a signal. Here's another great solution. This is called Pong technology. There's actually a few companies out there, and the only one I highlighted today was Pong because it's been around the longest. However, there's 2 other companies, one called Defender Shield and one called GIA, and they produce incredible technology as well. But basically what it does is it limits the amount of exposure that you have of radiation while using your phone or your iPad. So we do have a Pong case covering our iPads that the kids use. And then I have a Gia case covering our cell phones. And so it really helps just minimize that radiation exposure. Now let's talk about digital versus analog meters. This is one of the simplest things that you guys can change. And I love how simple this is. So I want you to look at your house and find out if you are digital versus analog for your electricity. So if you are digital, what's happening is that device is constantly sending and receiving signals of your electrical use to the headquarters. So talk about high amounts of electromagnetic frequencies. Now, if you're analog, they actually have to come physically to your house to read that meter, write it down, and leave. So it's far less convenient for the company, but it's far more beneficial for your health. So what we did, and this is what you could do, is you call your power company and you say, I would like to opt out of the digital reader, the digital meter. And what will typically happen is they may charge you $10 or so a month to do that. So you have an increase in your bill, but guess what? Long term, 9 times out of 10, you'll see a decrease in your bill because you are using way less energy when you're not having that device constantly be sending these messages digitally. So it ends up being a wash most of the time. But when you do this, you guys, you will see a huge change in the exposure your family is having. And what we found with Kicker actually is this was on the outside of his bedroom, on the opposite side of his wall. When we opted out, he slept through the night perfectly well. So again, just make sure you opt out. You'll go up about $10 a month, but that will all work out in the end as you'll be using less electricity just by simply opting out. Now, this is really important. And I think something that's overlooked is what makes us stressed out. This is a toxin in our environment that we actually can control. And this picture is exactly how I feel when I'm stressed out. This is little girl's picture, like her face. And then of course, our reaction tends to be this adult woman, right? So there's so many things that can make us stressed out, especially walking through a cancer journey. Whether you're during or you're post your cancer treatment, it is really emotionally taxing. It's really stressful. And then things like school, work, kids fighting, all of these things can make us stressed out. And when we are stressed out, we're increasing our level and our ability to basically create disease in our body. It's really, really toxic for our health. You know, one of the things that we always have been intentional on working on is just our relationship. So, you know, for Josh and I think all of you who are married and you've walked through this cancer journey, it's a really trying time on your marriage. And, you know, people would say it'll make or break you. And fortunately for us, it's brought us closer. We've been able to really, our marriage has thrived, but it's been a challenge and not every day is a pretty day. But what we've tried to do is we've tried to just be intentional on not having those heated conversations in front of the kids because it really weighs on them. And I'll share a little story with you guys. Kicker did so well through treatment. Most of you have heard his story. He, in 3.5 years of, you know, surgeries and chemo daily, he was never hospitalized. He never needed a transfusion. He was never on any other medication other than his chemo. He truly, by definition, thrived. But there were times in those 3.5 years that I remember he was not doing well. It was maybe a few days or a week where even his color was bad. He was off. He was low energy. And every time we would take him, and I would say it was probably about 5 different times during the 3.5 years. And so we would take him down to our alternative doctor, Dr. Moreno. And as soon as we got there, Dr. Moreno would work on him and he would say, has there been some stress in the house? And there were times we actually moved a couple times during treatment. There were some big decisions job-wise that we had to make for my husband. And every single time, you guys, that he was not doing well, what it came back to was stress in the home. Every time. So what a good reminder that we have to be so intentional of us being well individually, our marriage being well, for our kids to do well, because they pick up on that energy. They're so sensitive to that. And so I want you to understand now, of course, a lot of you could be in a really challenging season in your relationships, and that's expected. But do what you can do. Take time for you to invest in whatever needs to be invested in for your marriage or your relationship and you individually for you to thrive. Find your happy place. And I know this looks too picture perfect, but one thing that Dr. Moreno, who is our amazing alternative doctor, he taught me, he said, when you're feeling stressed out or you're feeling anxious, I want you to close your eyes. And he said, I want you to picture this beautiful tree. It's a big, huge tree that's like just the longest, beautiful leaves and branches hanging down. And it's bright, bright green. And the tree has a really thick trunk and it goes deep into the soil. And all the roots are deep into the soil. And I want you to picture that. And that will bring your body this place of peace and security. And it's so true. Every time I feel anxious or stressed, I do that. I close my eyes and I picture that tree. And it's like I'm picturing myself as that tree, just so deeply rooted and grounded and healthy and strong and secure. And so maybe you picture a field of flowers and beautiful blue skies, whatever that is. Get yourself into that place when you're feeling stressed. And then guess what? Once you do that and you're feeling better, you're going to notice that happen to your kids. And you can encourage them to play this game. Typically, when they're 12 and older, they're able to kind of really put themselves in that positions. But up until then, there's parts of their brain that aren't fully developed to be able to get into that, to fully let it benefit them. But for you, it could be so helpful. And be present. This is something, again, just as moms, whether you have a sick child or not, it's so challenging to be present. My kids love when we just sit down and play games. In fact, today, before I did this video, we were sitting down as a family and we'd played, 15 card games. So being present with your kids is constantly a challenge, but how important it is for them to feel that presence of us. So healing. I don't know about you, but with Kicker, when he was sick, I would say about 4 nights a week, he ended up in our bed in the middle of the night. And he just needed that presence. He needed our presence. So when we can stop and just appreciate the beautiful creation and appreciate our kids and appreciate just the slowness of life, that in itself can be really healing, and experience their happy place with them fully. I think this is so important as well, and the best description for me of this is taking my kids to the ocean. Going to the ocean, they are just in heaven. They're feeling just so courageous and so free with the big waves in the ocean and running around. And when we can engage in that and we can actually experience that with them, again, that's bonding, but it is allowing our bodies to just heal that stress and heal that anxiety. And, really above all else, especially for those of you who are, you do have a spouse, you need to take time for you. Take time for us. Josh and I, from day one, were really, really committed to this. We went on a date night almost weekly. And you guys, that actually started when we were inpatient with Kicker. When he was first diagnosed, we were inpatient for about a month. And it was about 2 weeks in, my mother and father-in-law came to visit. And they came to stay with us for a while. And they came into the hospital and they said, you guys are going to go out to dinner. We're going to be with Kicker. He'll be fine. And I was super hesitant. We had just been diagnosed. We're 2 weeks into this. I was super hesitant. But I knew Josh and I needed it. And we walked down to BJ's, was this restaurant that was a walking distance from the hospital. And we sat there for 2 hours and talked and enjoyed a glass of wine and ate and had time for us. And we carried that out through the whole 3.5 years of treatment. And I will say, I know it's not necessarily easy for everyone to do, and some of you are in different difficult situations, but maybe that is just having time, letting your kids watch a movie and you two go up into the bedroom and have time to talk and to just be with each other. I love this. Utilize your 1%. And guys, this is so appropriate for those of us who are walking our kids through cancer. 99% of what you do is for the kids. And you use the other 1% for yourself. Adam Sandler said that. But is that not true? Especially through a cancer diagnosis. 99% of what we're doing through this challenging diagnosis is for the kids. And then we got about 1% left over. So you better use that 1% well. Use it well. I love this picture. Play video games. Be playful with your spouse. Enjoy going on coffee dates with your friends. Get outside and exercise and appreciate God's creation. And again, I know this takes time and energy and effort, but it's so worth it in the end. So I hope that you guys enjoyed that. I hope that was beneficial. I hope that you are just feeling more educated and empowered on some things that you can do to clean up your environment. And, no, it's not going to be easy. It takes some time, but I know that it's something that will work well for you.